We're going to go over how to create this shot in Blender using Insydium's Nexus. Here in Blender you can see how many particles we will be using. Currently in this scene there are 5 million particles. Depending on your system and how much VRAM you have available, you can go higher or lower. So while recording, while rendering, I still get 2 to 3 frames per second. All that's basically happening is we have an emitter that's creating the particles. We're using a turbulence to make them move around randomly. We're using the wind modifier to push all the particles, and then I would normally cache it, but right now in the beta version there's some problems, or at least I couldn't figure out how to get it done. Let's go ahead and start from scratch. Let's open up a new scene. Let's go to Nexus plus, add an emitter, then we're going to press Shift A, add a plane. Let's scale this up in edit mode by 3, and we're going to add some subdivisions, let's say 5 times or 6. Let's press 1 to go into vertex mode, select 1, go to select random, press O to go into proportional edit mode, G, Z, move it up, scroll this down, make it a bit tinier, exaggerate it a bit, go out of edit mode, right click, shade smooth, maybe add a subdivision surface modifier, apply this. Now we're going to go back and click on the emitter itself. Here we have a bunch of parameters that we can choose from or play around with. If you want, I can do a dedicated video on each of them. But for now, let's click on this rectangle button, go to Object, select your plane, and now the particles should be emitted from your plane. All right, let's choose not the polygon center, but the polygon area for now. And then what we will do is we don't want them to spread around. We don't want the particles to already flow around. We just want them static. So we go to the speed tab, press 0. Now our particles should just stay on the plane. But now they're being generated per frame, which we also don't want. We just want them to appear once and that's it. So let's go back, click here on the emission tab, click on shot. Let's increase this to 10,000, press play, or just go ahead to 1 frame. And there we go. Now we have our particles, and if we press play, they shouldn't move around. Perfect. Let's also move the plane a tiny bit down, just so the particles are not intersecting with the plane directly. Now we want all the particles to move up. And the best way to do this is using the wind modifier. Right now the wind modifier is going into the Y direction, which we do not want. Let's go back, R, X, 90. Now with the arrow you can also see where the wind direction is. Now all the particles should be moving up. But I also do not want the particles to move up right away. I want the particles to be spawned. I want them to be first in frame for a few seconds, and then I will want them to move. Change this quickly to 30 frames per second. Go back to the wind tab, press on the strength, click 0. I want the wind strength to start going up around half a second, so 15 frames in. Let's choose 0.5. Let's check how this looks. So the particles are static for the first 15 frames. Or almost 15 frames, and then they start moving up. You know what, let's move this to frame 30, so we have almost no movement in the first second. Let's change this to 30 times 6, so we have 6 seconds of animation. Let's go into the graph editor, press A to select everything, T, Bezier, and then let's check this looks. I like that for now, but we do not want all the particles to just move up in a plane. That looks boring. Then we can go ahead, press on plus, add an NX turbulence, and now let's see what it's doing. Here, right away, I want the same thing. Here, I only want the strength to be visible or appearing at frame 30. Let me click here on 0. Let's go to frame 30, press here 100. So we have 100% of the strength. See, nothing happens, and then after 1 second, all the turbulence is appearing. And I don't want everything to be moving at the same rate. What we can do is we can go to the emitter tab. On the display, we can go to the color mode, change this one to noise. And now we added a noise pattern onto the emitters itself. Let's see without anything else how that looks. From top-down view, you can see you have different colored particles. So some are assigned a black value, some are assigned a white value, and everything in between. You can of course change all the settings. Let's change this to 400. Then we will change also the pattern here, but I want to set everything to the default value for now. But this still doesn't affect anything. It's still looking the same as before. So what we can do is we can go, let's first deselect or deactivate the turbulence, go into the wind, go into mapping, click on this plus sign, and add a color brightener. All this is doing is basically saying, okay, if you are a bright particle, I'm going to assign you this amount of strength of the wind or whatever parameter you choose. And if the particle is black or darker, then the value is decreasing. So right now we have different parameters we can choose from. We have the strength here. We have another strength down there for the percentage. All I want is that the color is affecting the wind strength. So the darker the particles, the slower they will move up. Instead of having a plane that is just moving up straight, we will have some kind of zigzag pattern. Or actually not zigzag, I'm just talking nonsense. But the particles aren't moving as a plane upwards. So depending on their color, they're moving either quicker or not. You can also change the mapping here itself. Let's flip this around so all the black particles will flow up and all the bright particles should stay down. If it's what you want. But I'm just going to go back. I'm not going to touch this too much. Go into the NX emitter, and here you can change the different parameters. If you want it to be having a bit more contrast, so a bit more darker patterns, you can do that. So less particles are flowing up. Let's do it a bit more extreme. So we have only a tiny bit that is flowing up. I don't want that. Let's go back a little bit. Let's see how that looks. I like that. Maybe we can change this one to be a bit brighter, not fully black. So all the particles moving at one point. All right, let's go into the turbulence tab or the turbulence modifier and do the same thing here. Go into mapping, color brightness, and right now we have different parameters we can choose from. I want to affect the turbulence strength. Right now it should be set to 5, maybe decrease it to 3 and have a look what it is doing. Let's deactivate the wind for now. So see, all the whiter or brighter particles are moving away, while the darker ones are staying stationary or moving just with a tinier speed. Again, you can change the parameters to your liking. You can play around with it. You can play also with the different presets they have here. All right, now let's have a look how this looks all together with the wind combined. So again, the first 30 frames, those two should be deactivated, and then they should all come to 100% or the actual wind strength. Looking good so far. What you can also do is turn on the hood or the HUD. Press play. Right now we have 10,000 particles. They're all moving up. So right now we're using 2 GB of VRAM to render out everything. Let's set up the scene real quick. Top view, add a camera, go onto the camera, move the camera up, change it to 200mm for now. Let's move it up a bit again. Then let's go to the emitter tab, click on export, create a point cloud. And let's go ahead by 1 frame. So now we see a bunch of points being created using geometry node. Click on them. It's using the mesh to points node, and it's using the radius we have set here in the emitter tab. Where is it? Down to 0.03. But this is not what I want, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to add a random node. I'm going to set this to 0.01 to 0.005. All it does is basically tell the particles you are a size between 0.001 or 0.005. Now the particles are a bit tiny, so maybe for now let's remove it so we can set up the scene properly. I'm using the light wrangler add-on to quickly set up a light, but it's basically the same if you set it up manually. I'm going to move the light in the top right corner, move it a bit further away, then change its spread so it's a bit narrow. I don't want it too narrow. I want it to fade a bit into the outside particle. Let's move it a bit further down, increase the strength. That should be good for now. Also change the camera settings so we don't see everything outside of the actual camera view. Go back to the geometry nodes tab, connect the random value. Let's see how this looks. And I have a bunch of tiny particles on a surface, on a plane. Now you can also increase the emitter particles or the emitter count. Let's add one more 0. So we have 100,000 particles. Press 1 frame forward. Again, we also didn't assign any color value to the particles themselves. Right now it's also being displayed in the editor. That's why we're seeing the noise pattern here as well. But this is how it would look like without anything, any shader attached to it. Let's go ahead one more step. Let's add one more 0. I would do this a bit more carefully, depending on your system. It can really crash. Also save and then go ahead 1 frame. Now we have 1 million particles in our system. which is using 2.2 gigabyte of VRAM. Let's go to the side view. Let's press play. Let's see how this looks like. Maybe the wind strength is too much. Let's decrease the wind strength. Let's go to the second keyframe. Let's decrease this to 0.2. I check again. That looks nicer. All right, press 0, go into the camera view. Select the plane, give it a shader. I want it to be dark, so let's go to, I don't know, a value of 0.177. You don't need to copy this exactly. Reduce the roughness a bit. And then we are going to create another material. I'm not going to name it. I'm not bothering with that. Again, decrease the value, set it to metallic, reduce the roughness, go into the geometry nodes tab, select your particle, add a set material node, and select material 1. You can name it, of course. I do not want. Right now our scene is too dark. Apparently I set the camera too low. Move it a bit up. Increase the strength a bit. Maybe also make the plane more dark. All right. So what do we do now? Now we can press play, see how it's looking. Make it come up a bit. Does look nice. However, I need more particles. Way more than that. Let's make this 10 million. Might slow down the computer, maybe even crash everything with the recording. Let's see. Let's press play. We're getting 2.5 frames per second while having 10 million particles and 5.1 gigabyte of VRAM usage. So let this play a bit. Usually I would like to use the cache, but it doesn't really work for me. I think another workaround could be using the geometry nodes tab and bake all the particles as the point cloud, which I might actually even try live right now. Let's reduce the count. Let's say to 1000. Go to the geonodes tab, select the particle, maybe from here. Add a bake node. Connected, animation. Go back. Now, let's maybe deactivate everything so it doesn't interfere with what we have already. Now we should be able to play it. Of course, I reduced the count right now. So let's increase the emitter size. First, delete this. Activate everything again. Set this back to 10 million. Let's select the particles. Press bake. And I'm stopping it here. Right now we're using 27 gigabytes of memory and we still have a bunch of frames left. But at least for now, if we deactivate everything, the first whatever frames that is should play back smoother at around 20 frames per second, which is almost 10 times faster than it was before. If you have the storage, then go for it. Bake everything like this. I'm hoping that the cache will be resolved soon because this is also compressing it more. Because you have also the option to compress the cache. But for now, let's see the first, what was it, 56 frames. Let's reduce it to there. See how it looks like from above. Let's render it out. Maybe it needs a bit more time to develop a bit more depth. Let's go to the last frame. And from here on, you can just tweak it to your liking. Let's see, the particles are a bit too big. You can also change the particles to have a different shape. So they're all not looking alike. So basically you would come here and then do instance on points, add different objects to those instances. But it will probably slow down your render, probably slow down your computer. But if you want this realism, then go for it. Let's reduce the particle size a bit more. And then you just also play around with the different world set. I mean, there you go. That's basically it. Then you press render, you hit render, then you play around with different settings. For example, you go back, turn these on, delete the bake. You can change the noise type, for example. You can use a different noise type if what happens if we use a wavy noise type. Maybe reduce the particle count. Also, I made the particles too tiny now. Remove them. Big. 0.06. I mean, you get the point. You just play around with the different settings. Strength, groups affected, mapping. If you don't want it to affect the wind strength, or if you want it to affect more than the wind strength, you add another one. Let's say it should also affect the turbulence. If you use the wind, then it will not only affect the wind strength, but also the turbulence, depending on the particle color. That's it.